Hello everyone. I'll continue the series on Bobby Fischer by covering a very interesting game he played in the 1959 US Championship. And this championship was held in New York just a few months after the Candidates tournament finished in Yugoslavia, and Fischer was of course playing. I covered a few games on the channel. So it was held in Bled-Zagreb-Belgrade. He finished in 5th place. Mikhail Tal won the Candidates and went on to challenge Botvinnik for the title. But Bobby came back to the States and played US Championship after winning two consecutive US Championships in a row in 57 and 58. This was his third one to appear and play. And this game was from round 5. He was playing against Robin Ault, who was actually the US junior champion at the time. He just won the junior championship in 1959. And by the way, he was actually older than Bobby Fischer. Bobby Fischer was still 16 in 1959. He was born in 43. And Robin Ault, who was the junior champion, was 18. He was born in 1941. And he actually won the junior championship in 1960 and in 1961 as well. And I'm not sure how old are the juniors or how old were the juniors back then, but this seems pretty old to me. And Bobby Fischer was still the youngest contender for the US Championship title. And in this game, Robin Ault had the black pieces. Bobby, of course, opened with pawn to e4. And now d6 by Robin Ault, the Pirc defense, named after the Slovenian grandmaster Vasja Pirc. d4, the main move, knight to f6, knight to c3, g6, and now bishop to g5. And Bobby goes for the Byrne variation of the Pirc defense. And now bishop to g7, fianchettoing the kingside bishop, the main idea of the Pirc, queen to d2, knight b to d7, and a better move was h6 in this position for black, because if you have the time, you should chase this bishop away at least to h4, and this is the main idea for black in the Pirc Byrne variation. But after knight b to d7, black's position is still okay. Bobby, of course, castles queenside, and you can see that this is even more accelerated for white, an even more accelerated attack for white than in the Austrian attack, for example, which starts with f4. And white has a clear plan of marching his kingside pawns up the board and castling queenside and just attacking relentlessly at the black's king. And it's similar to many Sicilian positions. In fact, if you only imagined this pawn being exchanged for this one, then you can see that it's pretty, I'm sorry, this one, for this one. You can see that it's similar to many Sicilian positions. And in this position, Robin Ault actually made a mistake. And it's a pretty big mistake positionally, and it destroys black's counterplay in the center for the rest of the game and creates a lot of tactical problems. As you can see, since the black king isn't castled yet, the queen is actually pinned because there is a battery now on the d file. So if you imagine these two pawns and this knight being away from the board, then the queen is of course hanging with checkmate, so that's one tactical problem. So the fact that the king isn't castled is unsafe for black's position. Another thing is that before he does anything in the center, usually black will either develop his light squared bishop or strike on the side with a move such as c5, which would have been okay in this position. Let's say c5, knight to f3, c takes d4, knight takes d4, and this is a common plan in the Pirc defense. You're opening up your queen and you are preparing to develop your bishop either to b7 or to move the knight to b6. Another thing he could have played was after Bobby castle to play h6, simply chasing the bishop away, and after bishop to f4, g5, bishop to e3, knight to g4. This would be a normal position, after which black would be equal. Okay, white would still have a slight opening edge, but black would be perfectly fine after castling short. But in this position, after castling, Robin Ault played pawn to e5, which is pretty weak, and the worst thing is that, as I said, the king is in the center, so tactically it doesn't work. And Bobby simply takes with d takes e5, opening up the center. An even stronger move after e5 was f4 apparently. And now, of course, if e takes f4, the position is immediately losing, because e5, d takes e5, d takes e5, and the pawn can't be taken because the queen is hanging with check. So black is losing a knight, so this doesn't work. And after f4, if e takes d4, then black is still almost lost after queen takes d4, and now h6, bishop h4, g5, f takes g5, h takes g5, bishop takes, and you can see that white is a pawn up, and he has a clear plan of attacking the king, which is stuck in the center of now, and now even if black does castle kingside, his king will be unsafe for the rest of the game. So this was another way to go after e5 to play f4, and whichever way black takes, white is better. If black doesn't take, then of course white can capture and open up the position to his advantage, because whoever has the attack and whoever king is safer should open up the position and start attacking. But Bobby played d takes e5, which is good as well. It's more than, it's almost +2 for white engine-wise, and it's just much better. And you can see that had the black king been on g8, then e5 would have actually been an okay move and the common plan in the Pirc. Robin Ault reacts with d takes e5, knight to f3, attacking the pawn. Of course, the pawn is pinned. I'm sorry, the knight is pinned, so if white takes on e5, then black can't recapture. h6 now, chasing the bishop away. Bishop to h4. Better was bishop to e3. It was more active, but this is still okay. g5, chasing the bishop further away, and now bishop to g3, queen to e7, trying to save the position and unpinning the queen. And now Bobby continues aggressively with the best move h4, just striking at black's weakened king side, and black doesn't really have a chance to castle queen side anyway, because it will take him at least 3 tempi. So let's say to play b6, bishop to b7, and castling queen side. So the black king is stuck in the center for at least 3 more moves. He reacts with g4, trying to close down the position, and now knight to h2. And this is Bobby's first mistake of the game, and this actually lets Robin Ault equalize. And knight to h2 is a clear mistake because, of course, it misplaces the knight, it puts the knight completely out of the game, and the error is tactical as well. And the pawn on e5 could have been taken, and if you remember, when the queen was on this battery on d8, of course the queen was hanging with checkmate, but if the queen isn't on d8, queen to d8 is still checkmate, it's just not capturing the queen. So after g4 he could have played knight takes e5, and after knight takes e5, bishop takes e5, knight takes e5, the queen can't take the bishop. I'm sorry, not knight takes e4. After bishop takes e5, if queen takes e5, if queen takes bishop, then simply queen to d8 check. So the best option for black would be after bishop takes e5 to take knight takes e4, and after bishop takes g7, knight takes d2, knight to d5. The position is complicated, but this is the best option for black from this position on. And I'm not going to go much further into this, but you can see that white has a clear edge. But anyway, after knight takes e5, there were simpler lines to go into for white, and after knight e5, bishop e5, knight e4, white could have simply captured the knight on e4 and still been okay. But anyway, Bobby missed this. He, after g4, played knight to h2, giving away his advantage, and now it will take him several moves to get the knight back into the game. So, Robin Ault plays c6, trying to solidify. He's now actually okay, and he doesn't have a disadvantage at all in the position. King to b1, c6, f3, h5, now threatening bishop to h6 and causing some problems with this diagonal, perhaps even winning the queen, or at least winning a pawn. So Bobby plays king to b1, getting away from that pin. Bishop h6 anyway, attacking the queen, queen to f2, knight to c5, and now bishop to e2, another mistake by Bobby. And in fact, in this position, black stands slightly better and has a slight edge, and is actually starting an attack himself, and Bobby doesn't have anything anymore. And Robin Ault was the junior champion, at least for a very good reason, and he managed to, after making that initial mistake, he managed to close down the king side. Then now Bobby doesn't have an attack, especially with this useless knight on h2 and the rook which is still out to play on h1. After bishop to e2, the game continues with b5. Now Robin Ault is starting an attack of his own. This was the best move and the most aggressive way to play, and perhaps he was afraid of Bobby at start. And you can imagine that you've just finished the US Junior Championship in Omaha, and Bobby Fischer just came back from Yugoslavia from the Candidates tournament playing Mikhail Tal and Paul Kers. So you have to be intimidated, and he is even 2 years younger than you are, and he is the youngest player at this US Championship, and you are playing him now. So Robin Ault must have been afraid of Bobby, and by this time it seems that he might have lost his stress and his fear. So b5 starting to attack on Bobby's queen side, bishop to d3, rook to b8. This is also a very good move, increasing the pressure in the attack. Knight to e2, knight to a4, knight to c1. And now from this position on, Robin Ault made a mistake. The best move here was to continue with c5, just pressurizing white even further, and using the fact that now both knights are misplaced, both rooks are out of the game. This bishop is staring at nothing at the e5 pawn, and this bishop is useless as well. So c5 would have definitely put much more pressure, of course, first of all threatening c4, and then almost winning the position. And here, positionally and tactically, black might even be winning. But Robin Ault didn't do that. He started to play more passively. He played castles, and this now equalizes the position, and he lost the time he had to increase the pressure. And Bobby now continues with f takes g4, h takes g4, and now h5. A dubious move by Bobby, but trying to emphasize or increase the scope of the rook and of the knight. And here Robin Ault makes a fatal error. He takes on h5. He got greedy, he took a pawn, which is completely useless, and of course now we can see that tactically both pieces are attacked, and Bobby played knight to f1 in this position. A much better move was knight to f3, because of course the knight can be taken, but then rook takes h5 and white is much better. But after knight to f1 the idea is similar. The advantage is just smaller for white, because of course this is not connecting the rooks anymore, and this is just placing the knight to an inferior square. Okay, it can come to f5, but I think it would have been more active on f3 and at least threatening to take e5 immediately. But after knight to f1, of course, Robin Ault has to defend the knight and the bishop. So queen to g5, bishop to h4 attacking the queen, queen to g6, knight to e3 preparing to jump into f5. Now knight to f4 attacking the bishop, and this is another pretty bad move, because now knight to f5, bishop to g5, queen to g3, increasing the pressure, and this is just all over right now. And you can see that white is at least going to double the rooks on the h-file and be able to checkmate. There is constantly checks hanging which lose the queen as soon as this bishop disappears, and that's really near. And there is 10 ways for white to increase the pressure on the position, and black just can't hold this. Bishop takes f5 by Robin Ault, e takes f5, queen to g7, trying to save things, but after bishop g5, queen g5, simply rook to h4, and this is now just busted. After queen to g7, rook takes g4, knight to g6, f6, not even taking the knight. This is much better, because after queen to h8 and rook takes g6, this is now an inevitable mate in 2 moves. And in this position Robin Ault resigned, but let me just show you the checkmate. If f takes g6, which was the only move, queen takes g6, and the only move is queen to g7, and now queen takes g7 checkmate. So this was a very strange game by Bobby Fischer. I don't know how he managed to make those 2 inaccuracies, the one with knight to h2 especially, which was misplacing his piece and just slowing his game down. So from this position on, he had a much better game here. He had an almost winning position if he played knight takes c5, just winning a pawn. But after knight to h2, you can see the difference. Being a pawn up after knight takes c5 and having a passive position after knight to h2 is what almost lost the game for him. And young Robin Ault, or older than Bobby Robin Ault, actually played a good game afterwards. He started attacking, especially here after b5, but unfortunately after knight to c1 by Bobby, another inaccuracy. What Robin Ault should have played was c5, just increasing the pressure, and after f4, let's say, or c3, c4, bishop to c2, you can see that black has a lot of pressure on his on white's queen side, so black would be much better here. And I'm sure that Bobby couldn't have won this game had Robin Ault played c5. This was a much more active position for him. So okay, a very interesting game, the US junior champion against the US champion and one of the best players in the world. And unfortunately for Robin Ault, in his first appearance on the US championship, he managed to lose all 13 games and have 0 points in the end. So not a very good performance, but at least he could be happy with this game. After his starting blunder, he actually played a good game. Okay, everybody, thanks very much for watching. I hope you liked this attacking Pirc defense by Bobby Fischer and Robin Ault, and stay tuned for more chess. Thanks very much. Bye.